Initially went through just this really dark, sad, like I knew a ton of musician friends that were just giving up. And then probably a couple months in, I kind of just hit this point where I was like, man, there's got to be a way to keep music alive, to keep doing it even if it looks different. So I started doing like Facebook live shows, my Venmo and Cash App. And I was blown away. Like I was just using my cell phone. It wasn't this high quality thing. Man, I made more money in that first, Facebook live show than I have in most of my other shows anywhere.
Today we're catching up with the sensational singer-songwriter Nate Botsford. With roots deeply embedded in the Pacific Northwest, Nate's journey through music has been nothing short of inspiring. From his early days performing in coffee shops to captivating audiences on national platforms, Nate's soul voice and heartfelt lyrics continue to resonate with fans worldwide. Join us as we delve into the latest adventures and the melodies that define his remarkable career.
And it was all yellow. I came along.
I think we saw you the last time I saw you.
Yeah, it's been crazy over here.
I know. So now you're married, huh?
I am locked down.
Right, and have and she had a kid too, right? Or
Yeah, she has a 6-year-old, and then we got a little baby girl coming in July.
oh, really? Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about that.
Very cool. So yeah, I mean, it's been I think since 2014 was the interview. Last time we saw you was at Brasada Ranch. I mean, that was probably even before we had kids, or like after our first one. So probably what 2016 or something like that.
Dude, probably, yeah. It's been a hot minute.
Right. So during that time, I mean, you've kind of gone through before you had like kind of like that folk kind of rock that you were doing before, and then now you're kind of more country. Did you decide to kind of go more country? You still have that great like genuine like sound, but you kind of moved towards a more of a country sound. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I still always love folk and Americana, and that's kind of, I feel like where I'm rooted. I don't know if it was before 2016 or after. I think it was after. I entered a songwriting competition that landed me in New York for the finals, and I had a little mentoring session with a pop artist, Ingrid Michaelson, and she heard me and she was like, man, you got to go country. Your voice, everything about you, like, screams country. So I kind of took that and started messing around with writing country. And as I've gotten into it, the fan base is just great. And radio is still really big with country, which is cool. I still have a lot of like Americana rootsy stuff to my writing, but I'm calling it country.
Right. Yeah, and especially because your influences and stuff that kind of won't really go away ever, just because you're influenced by like that, before like Johnny Cash, and which is kind of like that almost, like that Southern rock, kind of like that Southern country kind of feel. It's a lot more traditional, but
Yeah.
it's kind of not really a hard transition for you though. It seems like.
No, man, I mean, especially where country is right now. I mean, it's all over the map, with like the style and so it's been pretty easy to kind of adapt and, just call myself a country artist. And
Right. Now, what happened? I know that since we've talked, obviously a lot's happened even in the world with like COVID
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that. During that time, I know it had to have probably been a struggle because you've been a live artist for so long now. What kind of did you go through and kind of figured out a way to combat that and try to, still, whether you did like live sessions or something like that, or how did you kind of combat that COVID session, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, man, it hit hard. And I mean, we had our biggest year lined up as far as touring and, some big opportunities. And I think I initially went through just this really dark, sad, like I knew a ton of musician friends that were just giving up and, kind of just dropped their careers. They're like, it's not worth it. We can't play. We can't tour. And then probably a couple months in, I kind of just hit this point where I was like, man, there's got to be a way to keep music alive, to keep doing it, even if it looks different. So I started doing like Facebook live shows, and, throwing up, my Venmo and Cash App. And I was blown away. Like, I was just using my cell phone. It wasn't this high quality thing. Man, I made more money in that first, Facebook live show than I have at most of my other shows anywhere. So that kind of sparked this idea. And then I had a really good buddy of mine that his daughter was graduating high school or was going to graduate. And he was like, man, could you come play in our driveway for her? And I was like, dude, fine by me. So I went and set up in their driveway, and it was just crazy. Random neighbors and people walking, like, ran home and grabbed a lawn chair and just plopped it on the sidewalk. And so that sparked this whole sidewalk concert series, and it was donation only. Like, I set out my tip jar, my case, whatever. And for that summer of 2020 and even 2021, I mean, I was doing 12 to 14 of them a week, and just
Wow.
going to people's houses, playing on the sidewalk. People could listen from inside their garage if they wanted to feel more safe. But most of the time, people would just set out a lawn chair on the street, and I'd do my thing for an hour, hour and a half, and then move on to the next one. And that really kept me going, man. And it was cool to see people come together. I mean, you'd see these neighborhoods come together in a way that probably wouldn't have been possible had we all not been forced to stay home and, not go anywhere. And people started to realize, man, we can have a really cool date night here in our own neighborhood, and we don't have to pay for childcare. We don't have to pay for an expensive meal. Guys would bring the barbecues out, and it was just really cool, man. It was, as hard as that time was. There's a part of it that was super special for me, because people had this brand new, like, realization of how important music is. And yeah, it was just the one really good thing that came out of that dark time, I think, was, man, it was cool seeing people really appreciate music again, in a new way.
That's awesome, because you've always kind of been had that intimate feeling and stuff like that, that intimate concert feeling. Ever since, like, you've been like touring in like little like mom and pop places, you've done like, coffee shops and breweries and, even like wineries and stuff like that. It's that kind of, like, I don't know, bringing that whole intimate feeling, like, you do a good job with that. But then you've moved on to kind of like, I think it was at the Pendleton event, and you opened for, was it Macklemore?
Yeah, it was Dylan Scott, Ashley Cook, Malcolm Moore, and then Eric Church was the big headliner.
Oh, okay. Nice. How'd that go?
It was crazy, man. It was such a wild experience to be, because I've opened for, you know, some of my hero artists before, but to be on that kind of lineup, and even just the way they advertised it, like, made me feel like I was a part of that group. Like, I'm nowhere near any of those guys career wise and success wise, but they made me feel like I was a part of that, that lineup, and I wasn't just like, I'm not just the opener. But it was, man, it was such a fun experience. Like, the first time having like my own, like, my catwalk, that I could run out on, and the crowd was incredible. Such a fun experience, man, to be included in that kind of lineup and to watch those guys do their thing. It was pretty special.
That's awesome. Have you ever gotten to play at like Oregon Jamboree or anything like that? That's kind of hits that country theme, kind of.
Yeah, I've done the jamboree before, and that, I mean, that's such a fun experience. The last few years, the timing hasn't worked out, because we've been doing the Sturgis Bike Rally every year, and
Right.
so that kind of crosses over. So we haven't been able to do the jamboree, but hoping to get back there one of these years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you just played with one of your, as a pretty big band. I think it's one of your influences and kind of like one of your favorite bands is Need to Breathe, which is I think isn't more of a Christian artist, aren't they?
They were, yeah. I just reposted that video from it was a few years ago now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're total Southern rock. They started out as a Christian band. Now they're kind of like that hybrid. But that was probably one of my favorite experiences I've ever had, like, as an artist.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, with like COVID and like all this, I mean, like you calling it kind of like that hybrid music, a lot of bands, just because the way the industry is becoming, whether it's streaming and YouTube and all these other ways for them to reach their fans, it's kind of been almost, I mean, like hybrid for anyone, where anyone can kind of hit any genre. Like, and it doesn't really matter on the type of genre. It's more on the type of like wherever I can reach someone who's going to feel my music, you know.
Yeah,
So
totally. Yeah, that's kind of been my whole thing is, man, I want to reach people with my music. I don't, whether it's, full on country sounding, or if it's more just singer-songwriter Americana, like, and I know a lot of artists that's kind of their thing now too, is, and just we just want to reach people with music and help people connect. And
very cool. So that being said, I know that like it's kind of now that in the Pacific Northwest, all like the winter's kind of hitting spring again and starting to get a little bit warmer and stuff like that. What does it look like for the tour this spring and summer and into fall?
so typically, like in those off months, I try to hit Nashville as often as I can. We've been able to build a good connection in San Diego, so we're going there to play a couple really great venues 3 to 4 times a year. And then summer is going to look a little different, just because baby's coming like early July, and so I don't really want to be gone out on the road anywhere near that. But we're still, I think we have a couple Idaho dates. We'll be hitting Yuma, Colorado, and then hopefully Sturgis right after that,
Nice.
early August. And then yeah, we just a bunch of local stuff um, all over this area, which works out nicely for me. Keeps me kind of close to home. But
Yeah, especially the family. Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. And then, so going towards more of like a label or anything like that, or getting like, I don't know, signed or anything like that. Have you? What approach do you have to that, and kind of getting bigger for more distribution and kind of ways to get out there a little bit more?
yeah. I mean, that's kind of the spot I'm at now. Is I don't know if I want to get on a label. I mean, it's really hard to do while I'm living here, and not in Nashville. Um, but I just don't know if, I mean, it's nothing against guys who are on labels. I just seen a lot of guys have a really hard time once they get signed, and then they kind of get shelved, and then they can't really do anything. So kind of my goal right now is I'm kind of shifting a little bit to, typically all my writes like in Nashville and other places have been like writing songs for me. And I'm kind of making a shift to where I'm kind of splitting the difference and trying to write for other people. Because I've been able to get with some really good writers who do have cuts. They've had a couple number ones, and if I can get a song picked up, by another artist, that would kind of be the ideal goal right now. And then also maybe looking into a publishing deal that I could get. Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, kind of like you said, for distributing music, like when you don't have like that backing to help, like it's really hard to like get your numbers up to get your music heard, to get on those curated playlists on Spotify and Apple Music. It's just tough. But yeah, so I'm kind of trying to explore different avenues to help that without getting signed.
Right.
But who knows? Yeah, and I'm just saying, I'm keeping myself open to whatever could come up. And
Yeah, absolutely. There's there's been a lot of artists like, Megan Trainor and Ryan Tedder and those people like who've been writing for artists for a long time,
Mhm.
but still have the opportunity to write their own stuff and perform and still, make it pretty big. So,
Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked for you to get heard from other artists and then them pull you on tour and then all of a sudden you get big, like not overnight, but at least, gain that fan following and push that distribution a little bit more, getting heard more in front of, with bigger
totally,
artists and stuff like that.
totally. Yeah, and
That's
that's
awesome.
that's kind of the goal of a lot of artists in my position is, try to get picked up on a tour. And it happens with, like, it didn't happen for me that time, but with like Need to Breathe, like I just took a really big risk and put myself out there and got a really cool opportunity. And like those types of things could turn into them being like, or someone like them being like, hey, why don't you come on tour for us? Just even if it's just Pacific Northwest part of our tour or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you're getting that traction and like so many new fans hearing your music and hearing your stuff. And
Right. That's awesome.
yeah.
Very cool. Is there any artists that you kind of have a like going to Nashville quite a bit? There's so much music there. But I know that there's like, artists that are kind of on the same level as you, or some people who are still upcoming. But then there's artists like who are bigger artists, like trying to think of who, like, well, like Colby Calais is out there, and then there's a bunch of big artists, like huge mainstream top 40 kind of people that are out there too. Any kind of inklings that might be happening with any bigger bands, like even collaborations or anything like that in Nashville?
There's always the possibility. What I'm learning with Nashville is you got to just catch people at the right time. Um, we've built some like really great relationships. Even like one of my favorite bands, Old Dominion, we've been able to kind of get to know those guys and hang out with them when we're in Nashville. And those guys are like just such monster writers and players and performers. But like we've brought it up, like, man, we'd love to write sometime, and they're always open to it. So it's just catching them at that right moment to where they're like, oh man, I do have some time, on whatever day that you're here. Let's get together. Um, and that's kind of how it happens, just from my experience in Nashville. Like I wrote with one of the Lone Star singer, Dean Sams, this a few years back, but it just happened from like building a relationship and being at the right place at the right time, and him being like, "Yeah, let's write. Hit me up sometime when you're in Nashville." And he just happened to be free that day. Yeah, so it's a wild town, but it's just about taking risks and putting yourself out there and seeing what happens.
Right. Nice. Well, I'm kind of glad you're kind of like moving more into the industry kind of too. It just helps out, especially when you want to influence other artists that are coming up too, that might even just like what's great is you have that feeling and really want to touch people with your music, and almost being a mentor and touring and doing all these other things. I think it helps a lot in the industry itself, and just as a career as a whole. I mean, you've always been like humble, down to earth and stuff, so it's kind of cool to see you venture more into the industry rather
Yeah.
than other artists who are just like, let's just make it big. I just want to, like, it's pretty cool that, and I know that, in the future that it should pay off for you and like come up pretty big, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping. I don't hold any delusions of, man, I want to be on the massive stage someday, or, be this huge deal. But I'm just, man, trying to be content with where I'm at and also keep pushing forward and reaching new goals. And if something happens, great. If not, I'll just keep doing my thing until I can't.
Right. Nice. So you've always been really big at, really good, like with your own, I think I mentioned this before a long time ago, was your own collaboration or your own kind of take on a cover of
Hmm.
a song. Is there anything new that's coming out? Like, in 2014, I think you did "We're Counting Stars." You've done like Billie Jean. Is there anything kind of on the modern or like a newer song that's kind of hit you that you want to cover?
Man, there's been a lot of stuff coming out. There's a lot of great Morgan Wallen stuff that has been coming out, that I've been trying to throw into live shows and kind of put my own little spin on it. And it's cool that like my band is kind of in the same boat as me. When we collaborate on songs, is we never wanted to like come across as, man, we're just a like tribute cover band and we try to do it exactly the way whatever band did it. It's like, let's try to create this whole new spin on the song where people still know the song and recognize it, but it's delivered in a whole new way. And that's been super fun. Yeah, I mean, my thing lately has just been actually taking some older stuff that's just really obscure and trying to turn it into something different. Like I've been doing Bohemian Rhapsody at some of my shows, and I kind
Right.
of turned it into like, it almost sounds like a love song, but it's not. But like it's more pretty and not like as in your face. And I've been enjoying doing that. It's just I think people don't expect it, and not a lot of people are doing it. And it's fun for me. I enjoy it a lot. But there is a lot of good, great new stuff coming out, man, from a lot of the, especially a lot of the younger artists that are up and coming, which always gives me more stuff to try to dive into.
Yeah, I mean, when you do that little spin on it though too, if people don't expect it, at least you stand out a little bit more and then they remember you because of that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of what you want. You just want people to leave a show with something to kind of hang on to. Like, man, remember that guy from a year ago that did whatever this song or whatever. Just to leave some kind of impact. Whether if it's not with my own songs, then maybe it's like you said, just with a cover that they know and resonate with, and like kind of sticks with them.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, I
Yeah.
don't want to take up too much of your time. Yeah, but it's a great talking. It's great catching up. We'll continue doing this like here and there and stuff like that. Especially when you get a little bit further, maybe next year or something like that too. And the more experience you get under your belt and writing and stuff like that, so it'd be good to catch up too.
Yeah, dude, I was so stoked when you sent the message that you're back up and doing it again. So I'd love to keep connecting on here as I hopefully keep progressing in my music and stuff.
That's awesome. Sounds good.